There are specific patterns in your brain that influence emotional and mental states. At any given point, one type of wave dominates your brain pattern and generates a specific mental state. Mental states are responsible for a lot in your life, including your performance, ability, and cognition. Brains also sync when collaborating on a task, even when they are not physically together. When people interact, their brains activate in a similar way. This neural synchrony has been linked to empathy and cooperation in face-to-face situations. However, whether or not brains sync in the same way when communicating at a distance or online has remained unknown. Experiments reveal that even across different languages, our brains show similar activity or become aligned when we share the same story or activity. This amazing neural mechanism allows us to transmit brain patterns, sharing memories and knowledge. We can communicate because we have common code that presents meaning. As people are communicating more and more online, especially since the pandemic, researchers at the University of Helsinki sought to seek whether brainwave synchronization can occur when interacting individuals are not together and cannot see each other. For the study, they recruited 42 subjects and asked them to play a collaborative coordination task in which pairs of participants sat in separate soundproof rooms and controlled a racing car together. After analyzing the resulting data, the researchers noted that interbrain synchronization took place as the participants played the online cooperative game. They further noted that the increased alpha and gamma frequency bands were linked to better performance among pairs. The researchers further noted that measures of physiological synchronization and cooperative performance could be used to measure the quality of social interaction. This study shows that interbrain synchronization happens also during cooperative online gaming, and that it can be reliably measured. Developing aspects in games that lead to the increased synchronization and empathy can have a positive impact even outside of gaming. If we can build interactive digital experiences which activate fundamental mechanisms of empathy, it can lead to better social relationships as well as well-being and productivity online. We invite you to join us for this lively discussion on our live panel on A7. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, welcome to Andromeda 7, your celestial gateway, your channel for community support, help, friendship, love, knowledge, and just plain being of value to others. It's Friday night. It's time to feed your mind and grow your heart. And welcome back. If you're new to the channel, it's good to have you with us. If you're returning, thank you so much. And tonight's topic is spiritual brainwave synchronization. And I will now turn it over to my co-host, Teresa, for the opening remarks. Don't forget to unmute yourselves, everyone. There you go.
Here, I couldn't find my pointer. Happy New Year's, everyone. It was soon to be Happy New Year, and I hope you all had a tremendous holiday celebration. And you're in good mood tonight. It is Friday, so we can rock it, right? We have some new Facebook followers on both our Facebook pages, mine and the Andromeda 7. So welcome, you all. Thank you for joining us, and about 5 new Instagram followers. So if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to our channel, please do so. It helps us with our statistics, and it helps us grow the community. But welcome if you're listening and not in chat. If you want to join in chat, there's a lot of good activity and wonderful folks in there who have a lot of knowledge and A lot of good interaction with our friends and family in chat. Okay? So, there's this chick by the name of Lydia Denworth. She's a great writer for Scientific America. She says, your brain as an individual is really determined by the brains you're connected to outside of self. A good communication, she says, means creating new ideas together and experiences you couldn't have gotten to alone. Closer relationships with certain individuals leads to even more synchronization. The better you know someone, the more you sync up with them. Those are these theories. Those of us who remember our existence in Lemuria, in times before Lemuria, recall fluidic space and light bodies flowing together in complete synergy as if one body. They communicated primarily through sound and synchronous movements, then through telepathy as thoughts were formed, and they became aware of their ability to control their individual thoughts, movements, and sounds. Some say they eventually lost their knowledge of synchronicity and telepathy as they created human bodies with more mass in order to stay anchored into this world that they created so they could experience. But as Lori and I understand things, perhaps this was not such a loss after all, but a carefully divine, planned out, creative way for us to experience ourselves in just another way. And that's all it is, says Lori. Infinite beings get bored. Your boredom creates new things to experience. And the thing is, this will never stop. It'll never cease to exist, in her opinion, ever. How can anyone ever be afraid to die now? So, tonight, what do you all think? Did our ancestors know that the human vehicles for anchoring our souls here would require the biological, physiological, internal mechanisms like the brain to enable us to retain this ability to synchronize and share experiences, thus mimicking their previous astral forms and abilities, a mechanism that kicks in as we awaken more and more to our true selves. Science seems to be pointing in that direction. There are a lot of studies about individual brain waves and internal synchronization. We've discussed a lot of the frequency vibration and sound and how that works. But there's been little proven so far in terms of scientific testing about how we sync up with another brain or how a group of brains sync up. There's some group studies out there, really good ones. But long distance or remote synchronization, there's been practically nothing on that. So we have a lot to cover tonight, and we'll dig in. And Lori and I see this as a spiritual experience with some science and physicality to back it up. Right, Lori?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yep. It's it's interesting because when you're in the etheric realms, you're always connected to everyone and everything. And then you come here, you have amnesia, you're not allowed to remember. And if you do remember, it's because you come in with that agreement to do that. But we have to work really hard at making us be able to listen to other people's thoughts, pick up on those cues. I mean, we have to really work at it. And I think that's divinely done by design, which is really interesting. But before we get too far into this, I'd like to acknowledge chat really quick. Regine Huddleston, it's good to see you. Spartano Negative, so wonderful to have you here. Chloe, love you, Miss Chloe. Good to see you. Black Raven Meditation, right on. Glad you're here. Jeannie Musgrave, thank you so much. She says, everyone, please hit the like button. Please hit the love button. I appreciate that. We all love that. Michaela, it's good to see you as well. Right on. Grumpy Stack, how you doing? Let's see, who else do we have? Okay, Max is with us tonight on screen. That's good.
Spartan O negative.
I got him.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed
And
that.
I'm just trying, because, Smoking and G, good to see you, girl.
Miss G.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, Mary Wynn's always a pleasure. Lucky Stone, good to have you with us as well. I think I got everybody. Wonderful. Yeah,
Okay.
so this is really an interesting subject, and I thought we would start with Randy. I would love to hear his take on all of this brainwave activity, and do we pick up on each other's thoughts?
I would tend to delineate between the brain and what we consider mind. We often confuse them to being one and the same, and I don't necessarily see that as so. I think we have multiple processing centers throughout our body, primarily, yes, our brain, but also our heart, also our stomach.
Mm-hmm.
In
Stomach
many
is
ways,
the second brain, right? Stomach
in
is the
mi-
second brain.
in many ways, there we are getting energy because I believe that the universe is consciousness,
Agreed.
and all manifestation contains the spark of consciousness within it. Everything. And that it's all connected, because just as we have neural pathways in our brains, the universe has neural pathways. It has streams of consciousness, and we have the ability to enter into those streams of consciousness. And if we're doing that collectively, then we can sync up, much like a note on a guitar string, where you can have sympathetic vibrations that will in tune, and it'll create a harmonious chord. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of what we are able to do, both consciously and subconsciously, because of the nature of what we are is essentially one consciousness manifested in an infinite variety of form. And by listening to and attuning with our higher self, by sometimes on purpose actively altering our brainwave states, through meditative discipline, we can get to a point where we can be very sensitive to subtle energy. We can be very sensitive to kind of like sonar, or where we pick it up. We pick, it's the force, Luke. I mean, it's right. And we're picking up on vibrational reality.
Cues. Yeah, we
Right.
pick up on the cues.
And depending upon whether we're in a dense or a higher vibrational rate with our own individual consciousness will depend on our ability to be able to perceive or even project such a thing. But I do believe that we all are interconnected, every single one of us.
Yes, most definitely. I wonder, Sophia, what do you think about this? I'm going from the bottom up.
Speaking of connections, I agree with Randy. For me, it's more of a web, as far as the tradition that I follow. But it is definitely, there's connections. There's, people that resonate better with each other in certain situations for a reason. It's a commonality. It's survival. That's, in my opinion, if it wasn't for my gifts and abilities, I probably wouldn't be here. So let's just put that in more than once.
Yeah.
So
your abilities I'm sorry.
Saved my life. Saved my life. 6 times. Yes.
Wow.
From severe harm.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Huh.
Yep.
Wow.
But there's more
Angel,
stories.
It's good to have you back with us, Angel.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
What's your feeling on all this? What do you feel about all that? Do you think we're connected?
Yes. Well, it's not a theory for me. It's a fact.
Yeah.
I would put the language down and ask to look outside. Nature always did it better first. Anything a human says about the universe is substandard to Tao will tell you that. You can write 1,000 books on the Buddha and never scratch the surface or something of that sort.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Describe the synchronicity of a flock of birds, or you know what I mean? These words fail us. The ideas we're trying to scratch at they're all right there in front of you. And again,
right on the surface.
yeah, if you're paying attention to nature more than yourself, I think you have a better look at yourself through that lens than any other that we can create. I think the human creation of these ideas is an interesting approach, but it's limited automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, the brain, the mind, all that is descriptors of a thing that is so past. Um, I mean, what is it? What are these terms?
Mm-hmm.
We try to define a thing, and it becomes that thing, and it's kind of stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, it's just my nature to simplify things.
Yeah, I like that. I
Because
do the
we
same
see
thing.
synchronicity. I
Yeah.
mean, we see it in humans a lot. With,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe in former military, you, you don't have military any martial anything without synchronicity,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not something that's we train
You
with
got to be
that,
in tune
not
with your comrades, right? You have to be in
well.
tune with them.
We are once we all have the same idea, then you fill in the blanks yourself, and then everything. I mean, have you ever seen the silent drill team?
Yep.
The Haka, for example, that's a pretty powerful example of synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I would point to a school of fish or birds as an obvious
Mm-hmm.
example of these things that are happening around us all the time. So
Interesting. Huh, I like that. Delabor, what's your opinion on this?
Well, I think it's natural for human brains or human consciousnesses to want to communicate with each other, and for that purpose, we seek certain modalities. Of course, the most basic modality of the universe is mathematics, but in the human context, regardless of whether or not you're talking about the brain or the mind, that modality would be language. And of course, we share a common modality by sharing the English language. Because if this discussion was conducted in Chinese, I'd have a difficult time keeping up. So
Ew.
it's not just
It'd be Greek to
language.
me.
It would be Greek to me. Yeah. It's
Wow.
so it's not just language, but also the subset of humans that we are, and that we're interested in this type of esoteric material. So we're more likely to resonate with each other because we're
Mm-hmm.
interested in more or less the same subjects. We just
Yep.
approach it from
Like
different,
attracts like.
yeah, exactly, from
Yeah.
different
Mm-hmm.
entry points. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's natural to want to seek resonance, which is a form of concordance or concord as opposed to discord.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Order as opposed to disorder.
Disorder. Yes, I knew what
Yeah,
you were saying.
yeah.
I picked up
Mhm.
on that. Um, I'm really curious to see what Max Vision Remote has to say about this because he now this is interesting because you're doing the remote viewing and you're actually you have a destination, you have a picture, no one can see it, everybody's got to kind of tune in
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what that is, and then you got to try to hit those cues and key spots on that. So I'm really curious as to what your take is on this because you do have a unique view on this.
Well, I thought somebody would mention the 100 monkey theory first.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to, but I left it to you.
Okay.
I left it to you.
Okay. I agree with pretty much all the panelists here. We live in electric soup. We are electricity,
Mm-hmm.
and we do communicate, as 100th monkey theory tells us. When we're in remote viewing, during the destinations and even during they start to sync up with the images, but by the time we do our destination, we're pretty much everybody in class is acting as one brain.
Yeah.
They all fill in spots, little pieces that each other are missing, and we get a complete story almost every time. So I don't know what
It's
to say, except
amazing.
we are connected in some way already with 100 monkey theory. That's an unknowing, but here we're connecting, knowing we're connecting, and
Mm-hmm.
using the connection to the ether, or the Christ, or whatever you want to call it, So that's another connectedness part of it. Spiritual brainwave. Now that's not really a brainwave, but our brains can sync up with that ether.
Yeah, I think we have to learn to connect with that energy. That's
Hmm.
what it is, because you have that veil of amnesia. So you got to learn how to do that. And what you do on your channels is exactly a way to exercise that muscle,
Yeah, I
which
think
is
it does
tapping
happen
in.
naturally, but
Yeah.
we can practice at it and increase that ability.
Hmm.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
very much so. Grandpa Brian, we know you have about a 5-second delay, so we'll give you just an extra couple of seconds to absorb and give us, what you've got.
First of all, I'd like to say hi to Ray, which is Hannah, a young lady that is a part of our Wednesday night group. I think this is the
Hi,
first
Ray.
time she has joined us this evening.
Welcome, Ray.
Welcome.
Thinking in sync, and that almost a form of telepathy, telepathically communicating with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I know there's a few of you that know I was part of an experiment this past spring. And I actually ended up becoming a transmitter because everybody on week 3 was in sync with what I was putting down of what I seen in my meditations and all that. So was I telepathically communicating with those people? Or was my thought, which is energy, was I putting that out into the universe and they were actually grabbing that energy out from the universe and coming into them to make them see and telepathically think what I was thinking that day in this experiment. It was pretty interesting. Near the end, I was having close to 30 people at least come up with one answer that I was telepathically communicating out there out of the 3.
That's really interesting,
very interesting how
because
you can possibly sync up.
yeah. So it's my understanding through my guides that every thought you think is put out in the universe. It is
Correct.
instantly
It's a radio
broadcast.
signal.
Exactly.
Lots of
It's
things.
broadcasted out there. Yeah. Teresa, I'm sorry. You had something to say?
Oh, no, that's okay. Yes. And there's this, from a medical perspective, from physiology, they've learned not only how to map out different brain waves and how different brain waves function, and that gamma waves are all about our emotions and so forth. This underlying code that we all seem to have the same, because our brains function very much the same way when we react to certain stimuli. But there's this something, and I'm just going to ask Dalibor and Max about it. Something called mirror neurons. It's a group of highly specialized neurons in each and every one of our brains that are tailored and designed to mirror and reflect activity. So even if I'm watching somebody play ping pong, I'm feeling the same energy that they're doing when they're actually playing the game and I'm not.
Yeah, mirror neurons are basically empathy on a biological level, where like if you're watching somebody who's been severely injured, you feel that viscerally because you're imagining it through your mirror neurons being done to yourself.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's all I
Yeah.
had was empathy and sympathy.
Sympathy. Yeah.
Well, what about those times when you might maybe finish someone's sentence, or you both have the thought at the same time? What do you think, Sophia? Because
It's all about vibration. The communication happens. We're all transmitters. We're all receivers. We just have different squelches, different volumes, and different ways of navigating it. But we're all on, most of us anyway. But maintaining a high vibration so you're getting the information that you want, because the people for your highest and best are going to be up here. And the higher frequencies love being the highest. So that's about I don't know. I'm having a rough evening. You'll have to forgive me, but that's how it happens, is by maintaining the vibration that you desire, pursuing it with respect, intention, and great good timing. And what's your end game?
Mm-hmm.
That's responsibility.
Yep.
There's
Randy,
one thing I can't test
oh, go ahead.
in remote viewing. I can't test people's vibration. I can't test their vibratory abilities. So
That's true.
somebody could come in and be a very low vibration and still remote view. I don't know.
I have an idea. I saw this on the other day on Amazon. It's $250 and it measures. I mean, I don't know if this is bogus or not, but that's when I saw it. I'm like, what if I were to do a reading when I was wearing that? Because I've seen other documentaries. I'm like, what could it hurt? It's evidence.
Yeah.
We live this every day. It's not that we have lack of something else to do. And if there's something there substantial, why not look for it? I got $250 to throw. Let's do it.
Yeah. Can I just add something to what Max just said? That's really good.
I love that 5-second delay.
That's cool. Yeah, he's laughing 5 seconds later, but it's pretty funny.
That's cool.
Max, I observed two things in your remote viewing class. I observe individuals who come in and they're letting those images come in on an individual basis. They're either reading you, or because you've seen it, or they're picking up on some other kind of vibe and they're getting it from source directly and they're putting down what they're seeing. Then I see people syncing up, where you've got 3 or 4 people all seeing something very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's typing it, because we're very careful not to do that. We're very careful not to comment after the fact. So we know that we're syncing up in this vision somehow, some way. We're either tuning into each other's vibes or a combination of it. But it gets more and more powerful as we go through and add on what we're seeing, until you've got
the momentum builds.
The momentum builds, and what you end up with is a big picture. You might have, everybody has a piece of the puzzle, but in the end, it comes together, especially when we're doing a location. It comes together as a whole.
Well,
That
that's
says
because
a lot to me about. Go ahead, Delaware.
No, that's because consciousness itself is non-local, which means that based on the frequency of vibration, it's like the classical picture of the elephant and the different people like touching different parts of it, and one saying, "Oh, it's a thing with a long trunk. Oh, it's a thing with a huge leg, or it's a thing with a huge ear, or whatever." You're seeing small parts of the picture, but not necessarily maybe seeing the whole. And when everybody sees like all the different parts, then you can put it together. Because, like I said, consciousness is non-local, so these perceptions can coalesce into a unified perception.
Interesting. Randy, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up a couple extra points here that I think is pertinent to the conversation. I mean,
good.
For instance, in Reiki 2, we learn distance healing. I think we can talk about this in a quantum way, to where you can link up with people. Certain magical practices, for whatever reason, you can. I think ultimately we're looking at, time and distance being illusory, and that everything being connected. We're looking at that ability to link up on a quantum level. We're looking at both individual consciousness, group consciousness, collective consciousness. And I think when you get into a particular mindset, whether it be a group consciousness, that it does tend to sync up. It's like being, in a certain octave where you're close enough together that you're picking up each other's resonance.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay. So
Wow.
for what that.
Well, time and distance are irrelevant, because the fact that we're meeting right here, right now, is proof of that. Because I'm on a whole different continent from you guys.
Yeah. We're peppered all over the world here. Yeah. And here we are coalescing together and talking about this as a group.
That's why I always say that the internet is an aspect of the fourth dimension.
It's the web.
Yeah.
It's a web.
Yeah, the web. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the web of consciousness.
Yep.
This is interesting, Spartan O Negative. I like your comments. The human brain doesn't have caller ID. It receives a command. It doesn't check who's giving it. It just executes the command. Well said. Well said.
Yep.
I
Now,
like
see, that's why I think this was by design, in that we're like, oh, I hate to say it, but we're like little computers. Our brains are built a certain way, and they all function a certain way. They're all coded a certain way. But it's the spiritual side of it that allows you to trigger the mechanism. What do you think of that?
That's interesting.
So we're not just automatons responding to stimuli, because we could be that way. But what animates us and what puts us into creative mode and higher thought is when we combine our thought, not just our physical. The physical aspects is a mechanism for making that happen. And I think it was by divine design.
Yeah, I do too. I have to agree with you on that.
Go ahead.
Any
Randy?
thoughts on that, Angel?
Randy,
I would disagree. Well, yeah, he can. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up a point in that the people who have developed their clairs, who are operating at a higher level of consciousness, they tend to be able to pick up on a lot of subtle things. And you could have different smells, you could have different things that you're seeing, you could have a vision of someone in front of you. And quite often there's a synchronicity where someone was just thinking about you, where because you're able to tune into them in that way. And I've had that happen way too many times and gotten confirmation on that type of thing, whether it be someone that's in the body or even out of the body or even no longer living. There's a way of syncing up and connecting with their essence.
Yes, there
connecting
is.
with their and I have found this on way too many occasions. People that I am very, very close with, if they're thinking about me or something, I can actually see them before me. Like on a third eye type of, you know what I mean? A clairvoyant type level. And like I said, that's happened way too many times for it to be, not in play, and
not to have something to do with that connection. Yeah,
exactly.
Sometimes you'll get a song pop into your head where a key lyric from that song relates to the subject matter at hand, or sometimes provides a solution to whatever you were thinking about. That happens to me quite a bit, where I'll wake up in the morning thinking that the lyrics of a song I hadn't heard in like 40 years, some heavy metal song from the 80s or whatever. And I'll be like, I'll look it up, and I'm like, oh my God, that totally relates to the problem at hand.
Yeah, Spirit likes to talk to you that way. They like to send you messages that way
through music. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Randy. Randy had a follow-on. He said he disagrees. He has a different perspective.
Well, let's hear it.
Yeah. No, that was me. I'm the disagreeable.
I mean, Angel.
Disagreeable one in the room.
I like it. Go ahead. I'm curious.
Too many bearded guys.
Well, there's a bunch more now that I had a simple thought. Kind of lost it now. I would ask for any of you to not do what you're doing. Tell me what we're doing in this moment is not a compulsion. This is far more of a natural state of being. This whole subject matter we're talking about, it's a lot easier to accomplish than if it's a struggle for you to accomplish, then you square peg round hole. This is a very simple thing. This is purely our nature to be connected.
I agree with that part.
It's not something you can fight. We can we can define it and we can give it a name and all that, and that's great. That's a progress in a good direction.
But it exists.
But again, to struggle with it is furthering the struggle. I think if you submit to it, I don't know if that's a proper word, but that's how I feel about it. You submit to the universe and understand that we are a part, not separate from. There is no separation in any of us. We're the same.
We
are the same molecules contemplating molecules. You know what I mean?
Each and every.
I just don't think there's a way to. I don't think there's a way to disconnect. Is what I'm saying.
Okay. That makes sense.
Now that makes sense.
That
Yep.
makes sense. Okay.
Yep. I go
And
with
just
that.
I got your point.
Yeah, we can fumble around with the terms, but
Mhm.
the
I
connection
totally
is
agree
always
with you
there.
there, Randy. I think almost anyone can remote view. I don't think it really has many limitations. If you take a small amount of practice, I think almost anyone can remote view. And I think that goes back to like our caveman days, knowing which hole not to stick your head in, and that type of thing would be really good to know. And further the species in your line. So it's almost evolutionary, if you want, that we would be somewhat psychic and connected to everything. Because if you're not, you're going to make stupid decisions.
I think that there are things we can do where they say that meditation is the way to calm down the alpha wave activity, which is off the charts and creative, and that closing your eyes has a different effect on yet another frequency. So if you close your eyes and you meditate and breathe like you have us do on remote viewing, we let those images come in because we're in a relaxed state. And so it enables us to sync up more easily. The same thing occurs in lucid dreaming. And Lori and I have proven time and time and again that we can have that shared lucid
Proved
dreaming
it to ourselves.
experience.
We didn't have to prove it to anybody else.
Yeah, we just did it ourselves.
We've got that connection. Yeah.
And Spartan No Negative here says he did it what did he say? 1,000 miles away or something like that. Douglas Dietrich and I proved on a live stream communicating telepathically is real. It was the craziest thing ever. I interrupted his live stream from over 1,000 miles away. That's what I'm saying. Lori's in Nevada and I'm in Maryland. We're on completely opposite sides of the United States, and yet we can sync up.
Yeah, I love that.
That's relative though, because this is this one little bitty blue ball, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Look at, I mean, how it's
A
we
little
don't even
blue ball
have
in
we don't
a
even
vast
have
universe.
right the space around us, and we're all on this little bitty little mud ball. I mean, you're what, a couple of 1,000 miles away? I mean, set out walking, you can make that in a month. That's not that's not unachievable, right?
Right.
It's all relative.
There's a question for Max here. Max, do you think the vibration of the projector directly influences where they go or what they see or do? We all astral to the same vibration. That's a great question.
I actually think it's both. I think that you would remote view a destination without me writing it down, but just me writing it down is going to put out the vibration of that destination for you to pick up on.
Right.
So,
but you also don't you have people write it down, like you do it by a number, a letter and a number?
Yeah, but I have to write down the destination or think of it in order for there to be a destination and a number to write down. So there is a vibratory element to that to begin with that could be picked up on. So I think both are probably the right answer. I would say both.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that there's a collective consciousness, that's pretty much a given. That's pretty much a known thing. And instinct is one of the ways that it shows itself. And one of the very convincing things is the fact that even animals have this instinct, very basic instinct. Like, for example, I've always had rabbits. If you let a rabbit out in the garden, he's never going to touch things like lily of the valley or jack in the pulpit or nightshade or any of that stuff, because he knows it's poisonous without ever having tasted it. So, instead he's going to go for clover, grasses, burdock, anything that's not poisonous. So, it's as if like he remembers the past experiences of previous generations of rabbits who have eaten those poisonous herbs and has a collective memory of that.
Or does he know instinctively by smell?
That is the question. That is the question.
Well,
So
the
I'm
bunnies that
curious.
had a taste for that poisonous stuff wouldn't be around for long, so
No.
you'd probably
Yeah.
only be left with the bunnies that liked the stuff that was good for them.
Mhm.
Yep.
I just see the bunny in the garden going,
I have a question for Grandpa.
Yeah.
Grandpa Brian, I have a question for you.
right, Max?
Okay.
This author that writes for Scientific America, Lydia Denworth, she made that statement: your brain as an individual is really determined by the brains that you're connected to. And I'm like, really? Does that mean that if I don't have connection with you all, and I don't have relationships and interpersonal relationships, and I'm pretty much isolated from the world, that my brain is not fully developed or not capable of conscious creation or being creative?
Yeah, you're gonna get dumb. I don't know.
You slipped that one in, Max. I like it.
I love
Good
it.
question.
But do we actually degrade in thought patterns? Like if we hang around people with lower vibrations? I think so.
Oh, I would agree.
Yes.
Yes.
But they say that your personality
Yes.
is the sum total of 5 of your best friends. You know, look at what
Right.
look at what those people are like. Average them out, and
Oops,
that's pretty
Sophie.
much your own personality.
Show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's exactly right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So all
What
those
you focus
years,
on.
all those
Mhm.
years, your parents are going, I don't want you to hang out with those people because or
Mhm.
or where did you get that jacket? Who's influencing you?
Hmm I don't
Parents
know
were
who you think
always
you
worried
are,
about
but I
that.
don't like it.
Yeah.
I heard that before.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed? Have any of you ever noticed? It probably happens more so when we're young, but I think even as we age, that you take on some characteristics of the folks that you're closest to.
Sure.
Their
Yeah.
Your influence.
mannerisms,
You can't
their
help it.
language. Yeah, your influence. So so what she's saying is that you're the sum of all parts, and isn't that what we say in spiritual?
Mhm.
We're all part of the
Sure.
same soul family and soul groups. We're all part of the one. So we're kind of interdependent. We're built that way.
We're just here making it interesting. That's what we're really doing.
Yeah.
Humor
It's
the
really
gods.
that
Say,
simple
we're
in my
just the
mind.
chunky bits in the electric suit.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mhm, mhm.
The
Yeah.
chunky bits. Love that.
I could say who's more tasty, but we won't go there. I mean, alphabet soup. I like alphabet soup.
That's after the show.
I
Lord.
love it.
Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
So does anybody on the panel have an experience where they've actually synced up with you know how you have a dance class and people are doing dance moves and everybody's doing something different on the floor, and then all of a sudden they start syncing up. They start moving in the same way because they're interpreting the music in the same rhythm, the same beat. So how do we not, if we don't want to do that, if we don't want to be led by the crowd in a certain direction, how do we mitigate that?
Dance monkey. You got to figure out what tune's playing so you make the right moves so you can stay off the radar.
Okay. Make the right moves.
You have to dial into the energy to know what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Depends
make
on
your own dance.
you got to make your own dance, and if you can't, then you just hook up with the group that's most successful. That's the most logical scenario. I mean, I've had situations of synchronicity like that, specifically with dreams where I had the exact same dream as somebody else at the same time. It's just that the characters in the dream were different, but the context was the same, the location was the same, or various key elements of the dream were exactly the same as the person I was communicating with. So yeah, it is real. It's and it's happened to me without even knowing too much about it.
Yeah, you have to know how to shut it down. And
There's
when
a
to
side
shut
of
it
it.
down.
Could we be victims of this synchronicity?
There you
some
go.
sense,
Good question.
That's what I'm leading
I
up
got
to,
something on
Max.
I have something on that when you're ready.
Awesome. Randy, I'm sorry. Randy had his finger up, and so I'm going to go to Randy.
No, I was just saying that mindfulness is very important and able to separate, what's
Yeah.
your thoughts, what's not your, because mindfulness teaches us to be able to
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily identify with our thoughts, but to be able to observe them and to be able to pick and choose what we're going to work with and be proactive instead of reactive.
That's
And
a
I
good
think
point.
I think that if we can practice mindfulness, then we can learn to distinguish between what's authentically ours and what might be external influence.
Angel?
Yeah, personal experience and on topic. It's
Okay.
I grew up doing all kinds of different fighting, martial arts, and all that stuff. Well, if you've ever seen a boxing
Absolutely.
match,
Mm-hmm.
you will see them start to time each other, right? And that's to the
It's like a
benefit of one
mental.
and to the yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a way. I mean, it's a dance sort of, but they're trying to hurt each other, and these things can happen for good or ill. So
Yeah.
it goes to Max's point there that it doesn't
Yeah.
always turn out positive, and again, it's not necessarily voluntary.
Yeah.
I would
It's
concur with what Angel said with the martial arts. It becomes very synchronous and instantaneous where you're locked in with somebody when you're in that dance. It's something else.
I've always fought in a disjointed way from what other people do. So that's kind of been a benefit. And I don't know. I don't know if I dance to the same tune as other people.
You're the one that goes around and just shuts the lights off so no one else can see what's happening. That's how you would do it.
Now he
That's a good
spiked
way,
the
yeah.
punch. He spiked the punch to get different emotions out of people.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, that would not be good.
My sister and I play a lot of video games, Xbox, and we hook up and we link in together. But we play games that you have to play and coordinate with each other, so we have to work together to get the goal done. And we'll get in it. We get into this groove, and it's like, okay, I know what to do. She knows what to do. Everything's working really good. And then all of a sudden, I get confused. I can't figure out where I'm supposed to be. She does the same thing. We get all crazy with each other. And then the next thing you know, we've reached the goal. We've gotten to where we needed to be, and it's high five and Yahoo, we did it. But it just seems like that's how things work. You either work together and you understand what the goal is, or it just doesn't work. It's
I kind of wonder if you go to Washington, D.C., they have the National Space and Air Museum.
Been there.
And you've been there. So they now have these flight simulators that you can go into. And there's various levels of complexity. And if you're young, there's certain ones you can go into. If you're older, you can go in the more advanced modules. And I went in there with this little girl that I was taking care of, and she was having a blast. She was about 8 or 9. No, she wasn't. I think she was in the second grade, maybe first or second grade. So I took her into the one for kids and the adults with the kids. You sit there. You're not strapped in or anything, but the visual system makes you feel like you're in motion. And they'll shake the simulator. And as a group, you're supposed to fly this thing. So if one goes one way and one goes the other way, that rocket's going to crash. So eventually, you start out with all this turbulence because everybody's thinking of something different. But without even talking to one another, they get the visual. And each child was able to start moving the same way. You maybe have one kid going the opposite way, but when you've got a dozen kids in there, and they're all figuring out together which way to move to make that ship move through and navigate the film. So it was phenomenal experience because, little ones, they're out of control anyway. They're all running around. They're looking at different parts of this screen that's around them. So they're seeing different things, but they're all reacting And eventually they synced up, and it was just like a scientific experiment that was done back in, I guess, the early 60s, where they had the pendulum, and the pendulum was swinging, and they were all swinging at a different rate, and then eventually they all synced up and started swinging exactly the same. So, again, that's an underlying way we're built. Our brains are built. These children haven't even been together long enough to know how to work together.
Universal
so there's
law.
something intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Universal law.
Mm-hmm.
Natural law.
Yeah. Fascinating. And yet they'll say we're all crazy, and we're pseudoscience, and we don't have anything but anecdotal truth or anecdotal stories. And it's like, yeah, what do you have? If you don't have a laboratory test, what do you have?
Let me again disagree. These ideas are thousands of years old. So whatever modern science is trying to do with whatever in a beaker and a goddamn chemistry set, you got to be kidding me, right? They're not even approaching the topic in any way. So yeah, these are at least 10,000-year-old ideas. So yeah,
that's right.
Sure, and
pseudo,
like the research
pseudo
done by Rupert Sheldrake and his theory of morphic resonance, I think, proves that very. If you want to go deeper on this, it's morphic resonance with Rupert Sheldrake.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Randy's got a comment.
I just am reminded of years ago. I was involved in the music industry pretty heavy, and I found myself managing and mentoring young bands, and I'm reminded of seeing them in their raw state and working with them over time and seeing them come together to a cohesive unit, and how each one of those, you might have started out rough, but you get into that, what we're talking about right now, this synchronization, and it just starts to come together. It starts to gel. It's very tight. So I think music in a band type of format can be very much an example of what we're talking about with this synchronization.
There's an evolution to the group coming together, expanding, and then surpassing, even their own desires and techniques. They just build on that, and then they start meshing, and then just things really come together. So in a group setting, they seem to really build each other up and support and create that group effect. And then that itself takes on a whole new energy, synergy to that as well.
I think what scientists are trying to do from what I've read, I'm not an expert, but from what I've read so far, they're attempting in their secular way, or is it non-secular? The ones that don't have any. Yeah, they're trying in their secular way to mimic what we already know naturally from a spiritual perspective, to help design interfaces through computer systems that will help children learn how to communicate more effectively and how to do problem solving. Because but they're just not admitting it. They're just not recognizing or acknowledging the spiritual aspect of it. They're trying to do everything from a science, by understanding how the brain functions and how the mirror neurons work and how the alpha waves are. They're doing everything from a very scientific perspective, but they're at least acknowledging the power of communication, the power of the ability, and what synchronization can really do for you. It can change your thoughts, the way you think about things. It can help you heal. So they're starting to understand it, but they're just trying too hard to try to prove it. Just frickin' do it. Or bring in the spiritual people to help you with these tests and these programs. You might end up with a really cool program that will work for these kids with learning disabilities. Also, people who have epilepsy, Alzheimer's, dementia. It's supposed to be able to help them as well.
Well, I think that kind of goes against science itself, because I think it's pretty much an established reality that we all do link up on some level of consciousness, and since there's no way to monetize it, It's just like when Tesla came up with the idea of free energy. Everybody was against them because there was no way to monetize it. So
Bam.
I
There you
think
go.
that's
That's
probably,
it right there.
Yeah.
yeah,
If they can't
Sophia,
get a paycheck, they're not gonna. Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
yeah. I'm sorry. Sophia, you had something to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, speaking to what Teresa said, it's just like anesthesia. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that science is still not understood, how we can actually go to sleep. And it's the same thing with what Teresa was just saying. They don't know why it does it, but they do it because it prevents pain and displeasure and allows things to happen. But it's just, that's why I'm saying getting the bands, doing the meditation, get the evidence, get the black and white, because it's out there. That's
Wow.
the only way you can fight back is with evidence.
Mm-hmm. Randy, you had a comment?
Yeah, I had a bit of a thought. I mean, with all of us syncing up with each other, what about if we bring it a little closer to the self? I'm curious when we talk about hemisync, when we talk about like binaural beats and linking between the left brain and the right brain, to what extent does that play into our ability to be able to sync with others? Because I do think that that's extraordinarily important for consciousness to be able to balance out and link up between the masculine and the feminine within, as far as so that we can reach an ascended state of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. That balance.
That hemisync,
Exactly.
that's pretty much a phenomenon of the brain, the physical brain,
It
as
is.
opposed
It
to
is.
the mind, and it goes to how well your left and right halves of the brain are connected through your corpus callosum. So, if anything, it shows how well you're integrated.
Right.
Here's a question: How
Okay.
How many of y'all have a lefty in your life, and how
My
easy is it to
sister.
sync? And tell me you don't have a connection that's past everything else, because I'm a lefty, and it's far easier for me to. I mean, in almost every way.
Years ago, I
Just
broke.
moving in a room.
Yeah,
It's easy.
years ago, I broke my thumb, and I had to sign with my left hand, and it felt so awkward and just like wrong on so many levels. I just couldn't do it. But I'll tell you, by the time my thumb did heal, I could sign my name with my
Hmm.
left hand, no problem.
I
Yeah.
can write in mirror writing because
Yep.
when I was a little kid, I had a tendency.
Right,
I had a
Ambidextrous.
tendency.
My
Yep.
sister can
Exactly.
do both. Yep.
I can do both. Yeah.
I went
I had the
to a
same thing,
Catholic
Laurie.
school, and they forced all the students to write with their right hand, even though I had a propensity to want to write with my left hand. So just like yourself, Lori, I also
Mhm.
broke my right hand, and I was forced to use only my left hand for writing. And for me, it was extraordinarily easy.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I had to work
Anybody
at it.
familiar with what left means in Latin?
What's
Sinister.
that?
Sinister.
And
Yeah.
Dexter is right.
And
Sinister.
leave it to the
Sinister.
Catholics.
And Dexter.
Dexterous is right. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I went to Catholic school and they used a ruler on your hand if you used the wrong hand to write with. They wanted everybody to write with their right hand.
Mm.
So even if we were left-handed, had a proclivity to be left-handed, like I could catch a ball and throw a baseball with my left hand.
Yeah.
When I do artwork, I do a lot of painting with my right hand, and when I do sculpting or carving, I use my left hand more. When I open bottles, I use my left hand. So I go back and forth because the nuns screwed me up. Seriously.
But give us an advantage because if we're doing a task and we get tired, we switch
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its advantages. That's how
I do tend to write with my right hand, but I shoot with my left hand. Not
Uh-huh.
only a gun, but also a bow,
That's
and I
yeah.
use a mouse with my left hand.
Yeah.
Only my left hand.
Yeah.
So that tells you what side of the brain you're using. Yeah.
But now
Except for
there is
writing, I can do almost all tasks pretty much with my left or my right. So
Yeah, ambidextrous. Yep.
yeah.
there
Yeah.
is something called interbrain synchronization within your own brain, where they're teaching you how to synchronize your right brain with your left brain. I don't understand why they're doing that, because I thought it was naturally occurring when you needed it for problem solving. So what would be the advantage of teaching someone how to sync up your own hemispheres?
See, sometimes that could happen through an accident, like what happened to me when I had a stroke. And when I had a stroke, yes, it affected my left brain. So I pretty much instantly went from like a professional banker, to somebody who's not a banker, who's not an accountant.
I've got
Hmm.
something on that.
Go
A
for it.
theory.
Okay.
I've been hearing a lot. My Genesis has always been most important to me, so I'm going back far into time as I can. And the archaeologists are starting to think that language developed when handedness appeared. And I would say that people that are ambidextrous are closer to the primal, to the beginning than we are, or to say
Same
in the
here.
beginning.
Hmm.
Yeah. We that are dominant. I'm very left-hand dominant, but you that aren't, I would say, are closer to the source, maybe.
Maybe they chose that.
I take colloidal gold, and it has a brain balancing effect, which means which gives you the ability to use the emotional and the analytical side of your brain in congruence, which means probably in that case that would give you more access to intuition and spiritual guidance.
Colloidal silver does the same thing, at least for me. I make my own colloidal silver, and I know you make your own too, John.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've noticed that because it increases conductivity because it's the most conductive metal there is silver.
And they're online. I don't know how accurate or credible they are, but there are tests you can get to test your the balance of your hemispheres, whether they're right or left.
Yeah, they have a battery of tests to do that, and they used it on me when I had that brain injury from that head-on accident, and they were doing therapy with me. They were trying to help me remap my brain. It was like Dalibor. All of a sudden, I couldn't analyze data anymore. There were certain things I just could not do. And we lost John. He's coming back.
And Lori. Where's Lori?
They'll be back. Let's see. Let me just check.
I'm here. I'm still here.
There's John. It's Lori we lost, right? She'll be back. We'll just keep going. So there are certain things that they were doing to me to get me to remap the brain. And so they're like, you temporarily, because most of the injury happened on the right side of the brain. So they temporarily had me doing exercises, and it was math, visual imagery, and storytelling, and repeating back the story. So they had me working with memory in a different way, using mostly my left brain, because that was the strongest part. And then they had me later on with visual stimuli rebuild certain pathways on my right side. So I don't fully understand it all.
In other words, get those circuits fired, because circuits that fire together wire together, and so you're basically training your brain to start using those circuits again. And you know what's interesting? Like that ties in with the work of Rupert Sheldrake, where he discovered that when scientists synthesize a brand new chemical compound, it's a very difficult thing at first. But once that first batch of scientists synthesizes the first batch of that chemical, it's very easy for other scientists to replicate that, even if they're on the other side of the world. In other words, the reaction is easier to bring about than the first time they try it when they synthesize a new compound.
Didn't it happen with the engine as well? It was developed all over the world inside a month.
Pretty much, or the radio.
Radio, telephone.
Yeah.
All these big ideas, and they all happened like
pretty much simultaneously.
100 monkeys, right?
That's the same thing.
There you go.
Nice.
Well, so what do you think about the partnership thing, where the more intimate you are with someone, and I don't necessarily mean lovers, it could be a friend or a close relative, a sister like Lori has, the advantages that we have with this ability. What are some of those advantages and how we can put them to effective use with others?
To be able to feel how you're being received, so if you're inflicting harm on your loved one, at least I can feel it. I feel most people in this circle does too. If you don't want to feel that emotion, then don't, do that to them. It'll help me gauges my reception and sometimes my volume or my silence, depending on the situation. Not because it's fun for me, but I understand what's going on.
Is that a synchronization of brain?
Absolutely.
Or is it more intuition?
Well, that too. It's
How do you do one without the other?
Exactly.
That's my point earlier, Angel, when I was saying you can be an automaton in isolation and never interact with anybody and not exercise. The brain is a muscle, and so is your spiritual intuition. You have to practice tapping in and using and trusting your intuition. How can you do that in a void? Wouldn't we all be automatons? We're animated through spirit.
No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
You don't think that spirit animates our flesh, our body?
Well, yeah. That's the thing, is it would.
Oh, okay.
If you had nobody, you would have God.
If you have that belief, yes.
Well, it's inescapable.
Well,
pretty much.
Let me throw a wrench at you again, because I'm fully convinced that there is a sizable percentage of our human population that has no soul. So we'll lean on that one a little bit and see where it gets you.
Randy?
I just wanted to bring up the point with twins and how they can be incredibly synced up together. I also wanted to bring up the point of, for instance, husband and wife. The wife is going into labor. The man has sympathetic labor pains. I mean, there's a lot of different examples of how that type of an intimate connection you can sync up. You can experience the same thing simultaneously.
Yeah, and I would argue that it's not just some feelings, but sometimes you can actually quantify this with numerology and numbers. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like with my best friend, he was born on May 17th, the same exact date as my girlfriend. His father was born on the exact same date, but a different year as my father, and his mother was born on the exact same the date and year as my own mother. Like, what are the chances of that?
That is pretty freaking odd.
That's pretty,
And don't forget about women who tend to cloister together, tend to sync up as well. That's another very obvious.
Biologically, they certainly do. They're
absolutely,
cycles,
but is not the mental, the emotional, and the physical all interconnected?
It is, but
I certainly believe it is.
But it's also related to the mathematical, because I guess because I look for these things, but for example, where I sit right now is exactly 333.0 kilometers from the exact spot I was born in.
My goodness.
Exactly 333 kilometers.
Yeah.
So...
Fact, too.
And I didn't know this when I bought this house. I didn't know that it was at that exact distance. Or when 9/11 happened, that happened exactly 3.00 days before my 33rd birthday.
Interesting.
I don't know what that means, but it certainly means something.
Well, the numerologist would add those numbers in that, and you get a 9. So what ended for you then?
Yeah, completion.
Right.
Completion. Yeah.
Level up.
Ray is saying here, that's with the moon. We sync with the moon. Let's talk about this for just a second. We hear a lot of the astrology reports, and it took me the longest time to remember that it was important and not to just dismiss it because I am totally not into any of that kind of stuff. But now I am. But at the time I was just like, what? So planetary influences. They influence our emotions. They influence our responses to things. They influence our thought. So are we connected to those different planetary systems and not just angelic or source, or they are part of source? We're all part of everything. So how does that work?
Stupid moon's interrupting our pineal cycle.
Well, the planets have their own cycles. We seem to be connected to those cycles just by virtue of horoscopes and your risings and moons and all of that stuff. I mean, when you get into all of that, there is a connection to it.
Well, those planets are all made up. Well, not all of them. Jupiter's not, but those planets are all made up of minerals and such too. They may have some effect,
I
some
think the moon was
resonance
brought there.
frequency of Saturn or some such.
I think the moon was brought there to limit our pineal cycle and our connectedness.
See, a lot of people have said
If
that.
you go back, if you
I've
go
heard
back
that.
to the Native American myths, the two brothers brought the moon. Well, who are the two brothers? We always know who the two
Leo.
brothers.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
so
Canada.
those two
What if
brothers.
the moon's a satellite?
And
So
one of
it
those
was,
brothers,
yeah.
one of those brothers had our voices in their head and couldn't stand it because day and night we were raucous and having sex and partying, and it pissed him off. So he brought the moon.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. I've heard
That
that.
is
I've heard those
interesting.
stories.
The Anunnaki stuff is very interesting.
But
So
here's what I'm
Megan-
getting. Here's what I was leading up to, and that is there are birth signs. Like I'm a Cancer. Lori's a Leo.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. So you can pick up a horoscope, read it, and all the Cancers that are reading their horoscope that day go, "Oh my God, yes, that's me. Oh yeah, every single one of us." So why is it that we're not like the Stepford Wives? Remember that movie, The Stepford Wives?
Yeah.
Where we're clones of one another, or we have different features, but we're built the same way, constructed the same way, so we sync together more. Because no, I don't sync up with as many. Now I sync up with Jules on a lot. We're both Cancers, and Michelle and I used to sync up quite a bit. Lori is a Leo, but I have more synchronization with Lori than anybody on the planet right now. So you tell me.
It's a symphony, not a single instrument.
There you go.
Yeah, because
There you go.
that's just noise. One instrument's just noise.
But together.
So you got your violins and your
Yeah.
trombones and your So they're just different instruments, but isn't it interesting how so many who are born under the same birth sign on the same day share a heck of a lot of characteristics.
But
Yeah,
you
but
know,
would you want to spend all your days with yourself? Because I know I don't
Yes.
want another one of me in my life. I know that. I couldn't
Jules
take it.
Jules and I have a secret hand sign when we know we're getting too crabby. And I don't mean bad mood crabby, but too much processing, too much emotion, because we're crabs. We go like this on the camera.
I know a guy born 1 year before me, same name, same date. We looked like twins, and we got along great.
That's a glitch in the matrix.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
maybe you're a half of a whole, Max.
The Plato version.
Yeah.
I seem to have a twin in almost every city. Somebody will tell me I have a twin there.
Well,
Really?
yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
almost everybody does. We all have doppelgangers,
Oh, sure.
or we're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
clones, you know.
Yeah.
I've met quite a few. I went to school with two of them.
Well, doesn't DNA repeat itself? I mean, seriously. You know, there's got to be so many combinations, and then over time,
Not
the
supposed
combinations
to.
repeat.
It's not supposed to.
No,
Yeah, I've met so many clones of people since I've moved, from one continent to the other so many times. I've met clones of people that live on other continents in every instance, and it's eerie.
yeah. Now, Lori, if I took a sample of your DNA, your sister's DNA, your mom's, all three of you would have very high percentage hits on the same DNA configuration.
but they're not exact.
No, they're not exact. But now you take my DNA or anybody on this panel and compare it to your family's DNA, and they're not related at all. Now, they might share a very small percentage of ancient DNA with Africa, or you're mostly European or you're mostly Irish. They can tell that.
Mm-hmm.
But your imprint, your DNA imprint, is like your thumbprint.
Mm-hmm.
No two people have the exact same thumbprint unless
Right.
you're twins and it's very close.
Yep. We did the 23andMe DNA testing, and you could see the percentage.
Mm-hmm.
It was different in each one of us. Like I think my dad had more. I think it was my dad. He had more DNA of Neanderthal, and so it gave me a little higher percentage. But I can't remember. One of us had a little bit less than the other, but it was
Mm-hmm.
just the way that the DNA was dealt out to you when you were born.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating.
Good statement, Ray.
Mm-hmm.
This is true. This is another reason why we react to the planets. We share the same minerals, or some.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like with astrology, that for me, that's your energetic DNA. You know, you have your physical DNA, and I believe depending on how evolved you are, you pick your date of birth, you know, and that kind of lines up with those energetic signatures of what you want to experience down here. That's
agree.
how I interpret it. You
Absolutely.
know, or your nature, you know, how you wanted to interact on this plane.
The aspects of your life. Yeah, your incoming programming that you set before you come in here.
Right.
And so you choose the planetary alignments to come into that time so that you can pick up those aspects of that, like
and what you bring with you. Like
yes.
certain places where Jupiter, especially like the 10th, 11th, and 12th houses, it's kind of like, where have you been? You know, what planets are there? You know, what do you bring with you to the table?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Secrets.
Yeah. So, guys, we're coming to the end of the show, and I'd like to get to some of the final thoughts. And let's go backwards. Grandpa Brian, any final thoughts on this show tonight? And
I think a lot of our connections that people have is because that we are fractals of a bigger spirit, experiencing different experiences, and that's why we're able to connect quite a bit with different people, because I do believe we are fractals of a bigger spirit, which makes it easier for us to connect.
And for those who are turned off by it, or not reaching out or experiencing the connections and closing themselves off deliberately, then they are not benefiting from the collective, right? Remember what she said in the beginning here, we're more creative when we're connected. We're more creative when we're connected. Go ahead.
Are there people you don't want to be
just
connected
like I
to?
have a brother and a nephew.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That's my final thought is, you know, there are some people you don't want to be connected to.
Walls and boundaries.
You know, so we have our limits. We have our own energy field. We are part of the electric suit, just the chunky bits, but, you know, we can draw it in or we can extend it out, you know.
Yeah.
That's my final thought.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Thought we were going in order.
Okay.
Dalabor's
next. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I would say that we tend to do this on an unconscious basis with people that we already resonate with, and if you already resonate with them, it's very easy to do like a concerted telepathy thing or structured how would you call it, coincidences, you know, numerological coincidences and stuff like that, if you're already, you know, on the same wavelength as that particular person. And I think that, you know, in any kind of voluntary community like this one, you're going to have lots of coincidences and lots of such relationships, whether they be from a past life or from like Grandpa Brian said, that we're all aspects of like a different oversoul.
How about you, Angel? Final thoughts? It's all a psyop.
Again, No,
Swallow
no.
psyop.
Well, I think there's definitely that intent in the human population again. But no, I would just make it very simple. Just pay attention.
Mhm.
Go out there looking. You'll find what you're needing.
Gotcha. Randy? Thank you, Angel.
I tend to fall in line with there is really only one mind, which is consciousness itself, and manifested in an infinite variety of form. And we're all working our way back toward that realization through successive lifetimes, and the evolution of consciousness and realization and remembrance of what is. I think it's like we all exist within an infinite ocean of consciousness. We appear like waves on the ocean, disappearing back into ourselves. We perceive ourselves as separate, but we're really not. And we're all learning and evolving to realize that unity and to relinquish the illusion of dualistic perception. And we are all connected.
Yeah, agreed. Sophia.
Sure,
That's
make
what I
me
said.
follow that.
You can do it.
I know. Just messing. Well said, everybody. Well
Yeah,
said.
agreed.
They took most of what I had to say, but I would say interconnectedness is different from person to person and from what you're called to experience in this lifetime. You know, if you don't need a NOS button, it's not going to get put on your vehicle.
Mhm.
You know, so, and embracing your nature, you know, seeking like-minded people
Mhm.
and not bending to culture because most of what they have to say isn't helpful anyway. You know, believing in who you are and doing the best you can. I use my connections. That's how I know when people really love me is I can hear them because I'm gifted in that regard.
Mhm.
And now I don't look at it so much as a curse anymore, but it does come with a lot of responsibility.
Acceptance and the art of allowance is a big thing, and also
Yes,
self-love is
indeed.
the other thing. So yeah, most definitely.
Completely.
Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for being here. We're all free thinkers. I think it's awesome. What a great group of people to come together and just give their thoughts and ideas. And I really, really appreciate it. And I'd like to thank everybody that's in chat. Thank you so much for being here. And also people that aren't in chat that just like to watch and don't want to participate. We really appreciate you as well. And want to wish you all the best New Year's ever. And enjoy this coming year and make some changes for yourself. Make some positive changes and do something different and see what happens.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you, Teresa.
Tune in to Max Vision tonight, right?
Oh
Max?
yeah, there you go.
11:05.
Perfect.
11:05, and tomorrow
Perfect.
night probably, most likely.
Yep.
Wonderful.
11. Around
Yep.
11.
And then Smoking and G still has a panel planned that includes some of us, John and Dalibor, and me and Lori, on I think it's January 3rd, right? Monday. It's a Monday night. G, if you're in there, correct me if I'm wrong. But she's planning on talking about alternative histories, melted buildings, and other stuff.
Pretty cool.
Other interesting things. Go ahead, Lori.
All right. I just wanted to thank everybody individually. Grandpa Brian, Max Vision, Dalibor, Angel,
Grandpa has something
Randy.
to say.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead.
You can catch me tomorrow night. I will be on Milky Way Soul Tribe, 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. Eastern.
There you go. Catch it then. All right, guys. Well, until next week, watch for the trailer. You'll see what's coming up for next week. And again, have a blessed new year and lots of good positive thinking. And don't forget to have a bucket of love with you as well. Okay? Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Bye-bye.